Cloud9's their biggest test.
I can't see a world where Cloud9.
I love my boys over the guard and also in Sentinels. I'm gonna join you in NRG.
I've got FaZe Clan.
I think Shopify.
Shopify's gonna make a deep run.
And that's EG.
I got 100 Thieves. I got 100 Thieves.
They do play really, really well together, and I'm excited to see. They're a giant threat. This LCQ because of just how.
Welcome back, my friends, to Valoranting, and yes, it's now time to get into the nitty-gritty of LCQ in North America. And yeah, man, let's dive right into it. I think we have what I mentioned 10 teams before. I might have been off. Let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at the brackets, see what we got going on. But there's gonna be a lot of action happening over the next 2 weekends to see who's gonna be that single team that's gonna win LCQ and go to champions to join Optic Gaming and also XSET. And by the way, I'm gonna go on a small tangent here. XSET and Optic Gaming. Do we think those two are the best teams to represent North America out of the 12 teams that are going to represent North America, possibly here for champions?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think Optic is. I mean, there's not even a question about if Optic is the best of the best in North America. I still think they're the best in the world. I don't care what anyone says. FPX, yeah, okay, good shit, man. But let's see if you do it again at champ. So I think we've got right now the two best teams in North America. You know, I'm gonna say it outright because I'm wearing where's the patch? I'm wearing a USA shirt right now. We got the two best teams in the damn world going to champs right now. So
that's awesome.
That's just me.
So if we have to go into the third best team in North America, now Liz, we're gonna revisit that because you mentioned that it was gonna be Shopify Rebellion that's gonna be able to win this all. And you know, we have a look at the bracket right now. They're gonna be playing against Cloud9 to start things off. What's your take here on Shopify Rebellion on the deep run? Now that you get to see the bracket with everybody else here, does it make sense? Is your prediction right on cue?
I mean, it's mine. But, I think honestly, Shopify. I mean, Cloud9's their biggest test, in my opinion. And so you know they face Cloud9, win because it's Shopify Rebellion, and then either facing Sentinels or the Guard. I think that's easier for them, regardless of who it is. And I love my boys over the Guard and also in Sentinels. I think Shopify are looking very good. And I'm excited to see how they're going to play. And I think from there, I think it's hard to stop that momentum. I don't see them dropping. And I think that's going to be a full run.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm a bold girl. But I'm really excited to see them perform because I also think, I mean, I also could be wrong. And the reason I could be wrong is like, we haven't seen a lot of these teams play. We've seen some of them in some like third-party tournaments, but kind of when push comes to shove, we haven't seen a lot of these teams. And so what could they be cooking, you know? And I think with the time and the resources that they have been given, I expect Shopify to go far. And I'm rooting for them all the way. And so I think
I mean, even then, you're looking at B-Dog that, you know, has had like a lot of good success playing as a chamber for this roster, but the storyline every single time that we talk about Shopify Rebellion now is yes, B-Dog is able to frag out, but if B-Dog cannot frag out, most recently it's Mata that's able to step up, or it's going to be Tig. Do you think we're going to still follow that same storyline here, Sully, looking at this roster for Shopify Rebellion? Because if we are, and B-Dog and Mata have a bad game, then they're basically out of this tournament.
I feel like it's impossible, though, to say that both B-Dog and Mata will have a bad game. Because I remember when I got to cast, when they were LG a while back in, I think it was stage 1 of this VCT circuit, I was looking at it, I was looking at the stats, I was like, there is not a single game where both of these guys are negative. Like, it's almost physically impossible to have both these guys go negative in KD or have lower than a 230 ACS. Always one of them is going to step up. And so I think on the rare chance that it does happen that like B-Dog and Mata just absolutely shit the bed. I mean, Moose is still like a nutty player. Like when he was playing KJ and now that he's playing Smokes more recently, I think in their compositions, I mean, he's still just as good. Same thing with Tig, same thing with Dazzle. I mean, I feel like of these 5 players, this is one of the heavier teams when it comes to firepower in terms of individual ability and decision making. It's some of the best right now, I think, in this bracket. That's why, I was kind of agreeing with Liz. Like, I think Shopify Rebellion, definitely one of the top teams. Do I think they're going to win? I still got FaZe Clan, I'm not going to lie. But I think that they're a very capable team that is going to do a lot of damage in this upper side of the bracket.
Yeah, one thing that's good as well for Shopify Rebellion, along I think every single team actually going into LCQ have a place where they're currently boot camping in. Shopify Rebellion have like the whole facilities over
Yeah,
in Toronto
they-
and Canada, so
They got
we'll
money.
see how that how is that land buff gonna happen here for the team. But to stay on this topic of Shopify Rebellion and moving a little bit further down the other teams, Liz, as you mentioned, Shopify Rebellion to win it all. Who's gonna be the team that they're gonna face off against, and why is this team gonna make it that far?
Oh man,
In the grand finals, sorry, is what I
in
mean.
the in the grand finals.
Yeah.
This is the hot seat. This is the hot
Yeah,
seat.
we're putting everybody on
Oh.
hot seats today. This is how I run the show. This is how I run the show.
You know what? I'm gonna join you in NRG.
Okay.
I think NRG can do it.
You know what's crazy? She was just talking about how silly. You're right. FaZe is nutty. And now,
Okay, I
now
was.
FaZe isn't even in the
no,
top two.
no, wait, no, but hear me out. I think where FaZe falter is that they don't play together with their aggression.
Mm.
I think they are a hyper aggressive team, and they do kind of have like the quote unquote PRX style in NA. I have yet to see them play together with their aggression and play intellectually with their aggression.
God,
their
I'm
aggression.
questioning every single pick I've made now.
But I think NRG kind of like remind me of Shopify. Maybe that's why I go for them, because they have the firepower, but they also have that I really look for plays and beyond mechanical prowess. I think they play together really, really, really well. And I think all of them are mechanically very, very good at the game. And so I think I was thinking about it after Evanzili was like NRG. I was like, yeah, that could be maybe.
I mean, they have been stepping up to the plate a lot too, right? NRG most recently, and I think when we're looking at the regular season here, Sully, before going into Masters, before getting into playoffs, I think one of the players that really stepped up to the plate outside of Tex has been EU overall
Always
for this roster, right?
He has always been like one of the top dogs, I feel like, Vans.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. That's energy overall. When you're looking at this roster and you're thinking EU, you're like, oh shit, EU. Yeah, he is actually a really cracked player. But you look at the rest of the roster. There's Som, there's fucking Ethan, there's Tex. So how does that work? Like, what took energy so long until we realized, holy shit, these guys are actually a contender into the LCQ?
I feel like I've always thought like, dude, this is like individually they've got some insane firepower. Like when they had Android in, I was like, oh my god, like this team should be unbeatable. And then they just got destroyed in the open calls. I remember with Android. I was like, well, that's just absolutely tragic. Then they bring in Ethan, and there's just this crazy cohesion. And then you add Hayes. I'm like, what is going on here with NRG? Because I remember I was watching them, was like Liz was saying, there was some crazy team play that happens out of NRG, and it's everything feels like there's a purpose. Like there's nothing that's done on a whim. Everything's like premeditated. Like every kill is like, oh, I knew this player was gonna be, or like I know exactly what I'm gonna do. One person does one thing on one side of the map, right? And then immediately after, the other three players on the other side are doing something else as a reaction. So I mean, NRG, they have always had that firepower. They have that cohesion. I'm hyping this team up like they're gonna win the whole thing in LCQ. But I think NRG definitely could make a deep run, and I agree with both of you. They could be in the top two. But when you ask me who's going to be the top two, I'll let you know what I'm really thinking.
Yeah, and these are the stats that you currently have from EU versus Evil Geniuses, not EU or Europe, but the player EU, of course. And, I was going to mention that too. Against Evil Geniuses overall, don't forget here for Energy, guys, that within the playoff, they had a very good lower bracket run. Yes, they played against the guard that maybe wasn't the best guard that we've seen so far from Masters 1 or from Stage 1 to Stage 2, but they've beat the other two teams that have been on such a sick run throughout the season, being Ghost Gaming and also EG. And Ghost Gaming, I think for a lot of players and a lot of fans, we also thought that Ghost Gaming was most likely going to make it to Masters, was how good Kaplan's been working with the rest of the roster, how Nismo's been so awesome for the roster as well. So it's nice to see that Energy had some sort of like light at the end of the tunnel, some salvation, giving us a little bit more hope in going into the LCQ. But now let's go back and talk about one of those teams that haven't been the hottest, right? For me, it's the guard. And I feel that personally it's because they haven't had the opportunity of being as developed in terms of their mechanical skills to follow into the meta. So Liz, what's your first take here for the guard going into LCQ? What do you expect of him?
I expect precision from them. I think that's what we were lacking, is a lot of precision. And specifically, I trust in MC. I don't think MC would send them to the LCQ without an insane game plan and without kind of really deep diving into where things went wrong. Also, they're looking for analysts
Mhm.
recently. I think they believe there wasn't a job
Mhm.
recently. And that's great for me. I love that. I love that they're really taking the Sentinels move, if you want to say it, like digging deep and trying to figure out like what can we do beyond, because they're all mechanically insane,
Mhm.
right? I think that, speaking about the mechanical players, like who can clutch on which team, I think all of them have that ability. We've all seen crazy plays out of every single one of them.
Yeah.
And I think where we're really gonna get into it is like how they don't. Um, I think where a guard kind of falters, a lot of people are taking advantage of how they played, and I think now they're gonna have the analysts, and now the MCE is like the guard father, if you will. I think I'm hopeful for their improvement in their
Mhm.
precision moving forward. Do I love the guard? I love my boys over the guard.
Of
I
course
think the
we love the
guard.
guard.
We love the guard.
We love the
And
guard.
I'm hopeful for their LCQ run. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're gonna win because but
That's they're basically one of the two only teams right now participating in the LCQ that have been playing in terms of like these tier 2 tournaments, as we like to coin them as
Mhm.
Mickey Meow tournaments. And unfortunately, a lot of their games weren't streamed, especially going into the big tournaments of NSGs. But I mean, if we want to be scoreboard Stevens here, Sully, and we look at the compositions going on here for the guard, there's been some of them where, yeah, we saw some chamber here and there being more being introduced here into the roster, but overall, there's still a lot of Jet being played by Saya player from certain maps. A little bit of Neon coming out too, but as you could tell here, not the best results. Of course, they're going against Dark Zero has been undefeated ever since that roster got dropped. But do you think that the guard might face this issue where they're still having an identity crisis in their agent pool?
I'd honestly hope not, because I think that, yeah, the reason why they're kind of mixing up and like getting thrashed right now is because they're trying to figure out what they want to do. Like,
Exactly.
I think Neon, one of the more critical picks on Haven nowadays. I feel like Jet isn't as needed. Like, I still always think, when I think of Saya and I think of Haven, I think of that crazy Jet dash out of that Cypher cage to
course.
get that 2K.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm hopeful that the guard, yeah, they've had this like crazy, like an anime rebuilding arc. An anime rebuilding arc is what I'm gonna call it. I'm hoping that they're lost right now, and then like you said, the guard father MCE is gonna guide them back to the light. He's gonna take his young ninja Trent back over, and he's gonna become an insane fragger. But I mean, it's an identity crisis right now, and that's the key thing. It's right now, and it's
Mhm,
happening.
mhm.
This was happening weeks, months before the actual LCQ comes around. So this identity crisis, hopefully it'll get solved in time to beat Sentinels again. I'm just very, very optimistic for the guard in
Mhm.
terms of this identity crisis. Hopefully doesn't last for too long.
And when you have a look at this too, I mean, Net's playing some chamber as well. I mean, we've seen some chamber from Net in the past, but even MCE was mentioning that Net probably has one of the best breaches in North America too. So I have a feeling that I'm still looking at these scoreboards and I'm still looking at these comps, and I was like, oh shit, man, the like having the chamber, great, but then you have I guess a Jet on Breeze is okay, but then
Yeah.
if they're not having a raise, I mean, you look at all the other scoreboards that the results from all the other games that they played, I think I haven't seen any of the raises most recently. And it feels like almost for me, when you're looking at the current meta, as we're still playing the old patches for LCQ here, Raze has been a prominent agent going into these matches for Valorant. So this is going to be a big question mark for me for the guard, which is why if they have to go head to head against Sentinels in the upper round 1, I think that Sentinels might have a good chance to actually easily thrash the guard if the guard has no changes. Why? Because if Sentinels continue to be as stubborn to not do any agent changes overall, then still head to head with old comps, I have to give it to Sentinels over the guard. And let's talk about them actually. Sentinels, I think the biggest question mark. Liz, you said you've been watching a lot of streams here and there. I don't know if you're able to catch a little bit of Shroud streams. How's Shroud doing? How's Shroud doing right now with Sentinels? How's he doing as a controller?
I actually haven't watched a lot of Shroud streams. I've been tuning into Zelsis mostly, but from what
Trying to
I've
get him verified.
Yeah.
yes. But I think from what I've heard, it's looking good. It's looking like he's really settling in, which is like one of his biggest jobs he has to do. I did a piece on the score about Shroud joining Sentinels, and if I had to give this like giant task of Shroud playing competitive Valorant, fitting into this team, also a new player, because Kampeki's no longer there and Sick is no longer there, I give it to Shroud.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm glad they were like, all right, Jet, have fun, Shroud, kind of
Yeah.
like be our entry. I think being controller is great for the team in terms of divvying up the roles in general. And so it gives me hope. It's also with tens on maybe on Chamber. I think it's looking cautiously okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the way I'll put it. I absolutely we don't know.
I could definitely see that too, and I'm even going to put you on the spot as well here, Sully, because now that we're looking at, and I'm going to go through theoretically agent compositions that we might see here for Sentinels, right? And we love nerding about this kind of stuff, you and I. So you're able to see some Chamber coming out of tens. We saw, for example, Raze being played by Zelsis, where we also thought Sick was going to be the one playing Raze, for example, right?
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of shifts going through with the roster changes, with the roster changes now for Sentinels. Where do you think Dapper's going to play now if Dapper's not going to be playing the Chamber for the roster?
Right, that's what I'm thinking. I think one thing that everyone's overlooking is the removal of Sick just removes so many like critical agents that guy plays, and now it's like you have this crazy shift because Shroud is playing controller where Sick was playing for a little bit of time, and Sick was playing initiator as well in the second duelist. Like the removal of Sick is going to shift this so much, and it's really hard to pinpoint where Dapper's going to go exactly, because obviously I think the easy thought is, okay, well, maybe he plays a second smoker, a second initiator, or he's going to play a second sentinel if he wants to play Cypher or Sage or whatnot. It's hard to pinpoint, but I think Dapper has to be now the flex guy, right? Is if you're gonna have Zelsis on Raze and you're gonna have tens on Chamber, and you hope that Zelsis is gonna stick to either playing like the second duelist or like I guess the main duelist now that tens is on Chamber, where he's playing like KO as the entry Sky time. Yeah, I'm thinking Dapper has to be the flex guy. Like there's no like he's gonna have to play the agent that unfortunately no one else is playing, because Shaz is, I think, for the most part, going to be playing the initiator on Sova. That just makes sense to me. And then Dapper's going to have to pick up, okay, we're playing Bind, Shroud picks up Brimstone, Dapper picks up Viper. They're playing on Ascent. They want a second smoker. They want a second initiator. He's picking up like the Fade or the KO over, and Shaz is picking up the Sova. So I think Dapper is going to be the flex guy. He has to pick up the role that Sick once was. And I think those are ultimately massive shoes to fill, especially with a guy that was known as a Swiss Army knife in all of Valorant. So it's going to be difficult to pinpoint what agent he's going to play, but I think overall we're going to see his agent pool, I feel like, at least expand quite immensely.
Yeah, and I'm going to toss this up for both of you then, because we now feel that we've figured out the composition that we're going to be playing roles a little bit more comfortably here for Sentinels in that roster. So now that you're rethinking, you have time to think about it and be like, oh, these comp changes does make sense, and you still have players that are correct mechanically, and they actually have a deeper run.
Wait, wow. I mean, you already heard my point. They're not making it past lower round one. They're not making it past lower round one.
You're not past lower round one, so they're going to lose versus the guard, and then they're going to lose against whomever in lower round one is what you're calling here, Sully.
I'm with Liz on the fact that Shopify is going to make a deep run. I think that, I was like, damn, Shopify is they're just that team right now. Be God, Mata the man, they got it. I think Cloud9 are going to serve Sentinels something nasty. I've got faith that. All right, I'm not gonna lie. The whole guard arguments make me thinking, okay, maybe Sentinels make me make one round. I cannot see them making any run deeper than lower quarterfinals. Like it's just very hard for me to imagine Sentinels making this crazy deep run unless Shroud is as good as he was back in CS, and this man is just hot all over. So I'm for the fact that Sentinels aren't gonna make it past lower quarterfinals. I'm more leaning to the side of lower round one, but I'm just gonna be. I'm the typical caster. I'd be pleasantly surprised if they do well. Pleasantly surprised.
Liz, you have something similar? Are you going to be pleasantly surprised, or do you have something more bold as well?
Again, Vincent, I'm a bold girl. My whole thing is that they have an insane task ahead of them.
Yeah.
And also let's talk about who they've added as analysts. Weltis and Danny.
Yeah.
Danny knows Sentinels very well. He's played with them. And they said that they've already seen improvements. It's a tweet. I'm not going to take that at face value, right? So I think, but just the task they have in front of them is not only do you have to have Shroud get back to competing in like his tip-top shape format, and like he said he was going to be living the game, which yes, that's what I would expect you to do if you're doing that.
Yeah.
Zelsis moving over from version 1 to a completely different team, and then you have Shazam, who has to IGL these new players, and then you have to have the other 3 players. Some of them are going to be switching roles, probably Dapper, to adjust these new people. Like, that is a huge task to have and to
Mhm.
put yourself in front of. Are they boot camping? Absolutely. And again, like, these are like, I'm not gonna like congratulate them on doing stuff that they should be doing.
The bare minimum. The bare
Yeah,
minimum.
like, congratulations, you're working. Like, I'm not. No, because like, you should be putting in the work, and I expect you to put in the work. And I'm glad that they are, and they should be doing that. I think Sully is right. They have it's gonna be insane, and it's gonna be really, really hard to push past all these obstacles. Will I be pleasantly surprised? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, but I think you have if things falter and things don't work out, I also am not going to be surprised by that
Yeah.
because it's hard and they're human and it's like you're asking them to mesh and be in their literal top form
Yeah.
very quickly after they've literally formed their new team.
Yeah, yeah. For me, at least, though, looking back at the brackets, the potential teams that they have to play against in the upper round 2, right? So let's say they beat the guard. When we talk about head-to-head and the guard will be suffering mechanically, then technically Sentinels should be moving forward. And they're going to go head-to-head against or Shopify Rebellion or Cloud9.
Yeah.
Shopify Rebellion, we just talked about before. If it's B-Dot that's not playing well, it could be Mata, but never both of them are going to play badly. Or very rarely do we see both of them playing very well as well for Shopify Rebellion. So there's a possibility that Sentinels could win that. But what about C9 here, Sully? Because C9, we just talked about it before, they haven't had the best breeze, and there's always that lingering question of, like, did they actually did the best move by actually by losing, Autumn and Zeta and bringing Curry into the roster? Have they finally found their identity after you were able to watch a little bit of that MEL in the tier 2 scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Cloud9, I'm gonna say it's still choppy, right? I was doing my typical VOD dungeon nights, the rib statistics. I'm like, well, Cloud9 have changed a lot, right? You think about it back in stage 2, towards the end of that group stage, and now going into the MEL, their attack pattern has changed a lot. They've given Leaf a lot more freedom. He's moved on from the Jet. He's playing now, I think, mainly Neon and Raze. And I think Cloud9, their map pool is strong, but those are two critical points that we were just talking about with Vine and Breeze. And watching back those VODs, I'm like, wow, this shit sucks. Like, I'm gonna be straight up. This is not a fun game of Valorant I want to watch right now. And so that weakened map pool, obviously, like we were talking earlier, they brought in a new coach or a new assistant coach. How much is he going to do to expand this map pool? Because you're going up against first Shopify Rebellion, which again, I'm still with Liz that they are an incredibly potent team, and I have them winning that game. I can't see a world where Cloud9 are going to come off of this tier 2 run in MEL and instantly they're going to be this insane team in the LCQ. I don't think that's a possibility. I don't think we're going to see the old form of Cloud9. It will take some time for them to get back into it, but it's not I don't think it's the worst thing to say that Cloud9 aren't going to make a deep run in like the lower bracket or something, because again, they've made changes that I think are starting to fit more accordingly to the meta. And with that meta, they are getting Leaf in a more comfortable spot. They're getting Zepp in a more comfortable spot. And Curry and Vanity are starting to have this really good synergy with their lurks and when they're both playing controller. And even when Zeppa's playing like KO, he's synergizing with the second initiator, that being Curry. So there's a lot of chemistry being built up between this Cloud9 team that I'm super happy to see. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you're still a little bit behind. That's the only issue. And all these other teams are miles ahead of you right now.
Yeah, because even for me, like, when I look at C9, I love the boys, but it doesn't look like they actually...
I mean, they don't even have matching jerseys. Curry doesn't even have the right jersey on.
Maybe that's the reason why. Curry, just change your jersey back to match everybody else, and then everything's going to work out perfectly. But let's actually take a moment, because we just saw some B-roll here of Cloud9 versus version 1 on Pearl. I know it's not going to be used towards LCQ, but Liz, I don't know if you had a chance to watch this game or watch a little bit of Pearl at the competitive level, but I want to gather your first impressions on this map as a competitive meta. Is this going to be a map that's fun to watch, fun to play, fun to experience at tournament play?
It's going to require teams to outsmart each other. There's ample opportunities for lurks, ample opportunities for fakes. A bit of a rotation simulator, a little bit.
Yeah.
But you also have bind, which is literally like, whoa. So like,
TP.
Literally just but literally the circular. Remember the FNS stim.
Oh god.
Yeah, TP.
We like that one.
We do love that one. It's iconic. But I think what I really like about Pearl, it's gonna require you to dig deep. And it's also what I really like about it kind of acts like that sort of Breeze where it's an aimers map. So not only do you have to dig deep and find like what players, like, are you gonna stick to your instincts? Are you gonna think about this? Like, but you have to like hold those angles and make sure your headshot, no body shot berries like allowed here,
Mhm.
because it's kind of the best of both worlds. And I think that it's gonna be a true test of Valorant. Like the gimmick of this map, it has no gimmick, which I loved when that came
Mhm.
out, because I was like, thank God, like, it's just truly like who can get control,
Yeah, yeah,
who's
yeah.
gonna buy into this, like, and so it's gonna be really interesting to see at the competitive level. From what I've seen, it's definitely a lot of mid control, I believe, that's being taken first, so it's kind of like necessary. So that's what I've seen. I don't know if Sully, in your VOD dungeon, if you would agree with me or disagree with me,
Yeah, I think
but
for sure, like, this map is so heavy. It's very heavy to mid side. If you can go in the mid side, especially on the attack, like, I think this map is, like, unbelievably defensive side. Like, its
Mhm.
gimmick is being shit.
mhm.
It's being shit.
Yeah.
I hate this map so much, and that's when you said there's no gimmick, I was like, "What are you talking about? This map is." I hate this map with a passion. Like, I remember, but at the same time, it's like I remember I was VOD reviewing the Cloud9 versus Version 1 Pearl match, and I was sitting there, I was watching Version 1, and I was watching Cloud9, I was like, this map isn't as bad as I first thought. And then I hopped into my ranked game and I was like, well, I was playing Viper and Sage. I don't think Viper's really needed. Let me play Astra. And
Mm,
Astra is just so good. And like I
I
feel like
was
it's
that's
so
watching that.
good.
that's how I felt
Yeah.
about every single map. It's like Fracture, I was like, this map sucks. And then pros make the meta. I'm like, oh, this map isn't as bad as I thought it was. Pearl isn't as bad as I thought it was. So I'm in the same boat, like watching them and understanding, okay, this mid position is probably the most important part of this entire map. And now I'm understanding how this map works, how teams are going to be playing it, possibly what agents, like I'm theory crafting these agents and how valuable they can be. Like for the first time ever, I watched and I was like, holy shit, Cypher's actually like kind of OP on a map. And he's really
He's
strong in
back.
this
He's
map for
back.
Pearl. So like I'm excited, like overall, just to watch what everyone does on Pearl and what exactly the new meta is going to be. Obviously, we have it for LCQ, but going into champs, I think we have it. So I'm gonna be like, that'll be awesome. And yeah, all right, fans. All right, man. Cypher's kind of good. Cypher's kind of
I
good.
mean, I'm along the same lines that I actually don't really like Pearl because I don't like maps where you need a Viper to split a site and try
Yeah.
to plant. That's why I don't like
That's
Breeze
fair.
watching it. That's why I don't like Icebox. But I was also watching Sliggy's stream too, and he brings a really good point. Is that Pearl is one of those maps where on defense you don't really need to fight for map control. Whenever you're
Mm,
starting the map, you already have a defender at Art. You already have a defender at B halls once the barrier comes up. You could already stack two players inside the A site or one player towards the B side, most likely a chamber that's going to
Yeah.
opt down towards long B. So you don't really need to have anybody that fights for control on defense. You're rewarded by just sticking your angle for the whole minute and
mhm,
45
mhm.
seconds. And hopefully, if you win your battle, then you win the map. But this is also very, very highlight, like not being able to see the evolution of how this map's being played yet. But first impressions, I definitely do agree with that point, saying that you're not rewarded on the defense to be able to win your rounds. So we'll see how that's going to pan out once we get into champions, because of course that's not going to be played during LCQ. So let's focus on LCQ though, to get back at it, because Liz, you've mentioned here that FaZe is actually one of those teams that are actually, not taking advantage of the two players that are playing a little bit more hyper aggressively, being Baby Bay and Dicey. So Sully, do you agree with that? Do you think that FaZe Clan are lacking that a little bit more, and that they're missing that mid layer to be able to win their maps or win their rounds?
Hmm. I mean, I've got FaZe Clan winning the whole thing, so it's hard for me to point out any flaws. But I'm gonna just say this: I am in agreement with that synergy and kind of the lack of understanding of like, okay, I'm being aggressive. I need all you to be aggressive as well. Like I do kind of see that at times with FaZe Clan. It's like, yeah, the synergy isn't always going to be 100%. Like maybe Paper X is. I still think Paper X maybe not even perfect, because sometimes I think they overextend themselves. Same thing with FaZe Clan.
Absolutely.
But when they have that chemistry, when they're like all on the same page, and it's like some haiku, like let me do a back set crazy hit. Like everyone is on the same page. This team is, I feel like at times almost unbeatable, and we saw really good highlights of that in the last group stage and playoff for VCT. So I think that again, this is like a training arc for every single team that isn't playing tier 2 events. Work on that synergy. And I think a FaZe have put the time, because it's easy to point out their flaws, but it's not easy to fix. And now that you've got Zek and you have Raucus or not Raucus at the helm, JDM at the helm, it's going to be like this FaZe Clan team has got so much support that it's easy to point out these flaws, and hopefully it's a little bit easier to fix it, which I felt was something they didn't really have. They weren't able to easily fix their flaws, but now they've had this time and this support staff. They should be able to fix these issues, and we should see, I would say, a peak version of FaZe going into LCQ.
Liz, you think it's still not enough what Sully's just mentioned?
I was thinking when we were talking about Pearl that it rewards teams like FaZe, like kind of that overwhelming factor, right? FaZe is very good at overwhelming you. And they will also punish your aggression because they are aggressive. And what I really liked about, I think what Sully is harping on, which I agree with, is like when during the playoffs, we really kind of saw them maturing, and we really saw them, really playing together. And that last map could have been anyone. Unfortunate how it turned out with the delays and the tech issues. But I didn't know where that was going to go. And I think, Flya coming in, also kind of like adjusting. And I think there's a lot of room that they have to kind of fix these issues that we're talking about. Absolutely, it's possible. And obviously they're scrimming and they're practicing, which is great. I don't know. Because I think the more, how do I say this without, basically, I don't know if they are going to be able to gel together quick enough. Again, to steal a turn of phrase, pleasantly surprised if they do. But I think like kind of like slow playing, but you're together versus like hyper aggression but not playing together. I think the slow playing together wins every time. 9 times out of 10.
So are we kind of just sleeping on 100 Thieves and EG? Because when we look back, okay, I was gonna say, because when we look back,
you
at
haven't
what
asked
the
me.
stats,
You haven't asked me who's number 2. You haven't asked me who's gonna be in the finals of FaZe Clan yet.
Who's in the finals versus FaZe Clan?
I got 100 Thieves. Okay. I got 100 Thieves, and I'll tell you why. Because 100 Thieves. Let's be real here. Sean Gare's the mastermind. Put this team on the map again. He actually made 100 Thieves a viable team with the roster change that they had. Like, this team is like, I'm snapping. I'm like, wow. Him and Mike's have done an amazing job at getting 100 Thieves back on track and looking like an actual competitive team. Yeah, sometimes I'm sitting there like, okay, why are we playing Cypher? That doesn't make any sense. But it works. Like, everything they do, because we both know Sean Garris. He's an incredible mind, and I feel like everything they do is now with a purpose, similar to how NRG play. And it's like, again, a mid of like a Haikyuu tournament arc. They got better and better as the games went on, back in those playoffs and back in group stage. So I think now that they've had these 6 months to develop and like refine everything that they've been doing, it's hard for me to say that this team isn't going to be a top contender. Like, I think about them, like 100 Thieves historically, they always start off not, and then they always come back and they play lights out and they play phenomenal. And I'm thinking that's the exact thing that's going to happen. You've given now this amazing support team 6 months. That's half a year to figure out what they want to do. And like, there's no telling what crazy comps, what crazy ideas. Is there going to be like, we might even see Austin playing like Sova or whatnot now. He's playing every single, like, we don't know what they're going to do, but whatever they're going to do, teams might, or no, not might, they are not going to be ready for what they have in store.
The thing that was a little bit more scary, though, when you were watching at 100 Thieves on their playoff run, was the lack of having, 1, operators, and 2, also having maybe a lack of chamber, because we saw Will play a little bit more chamber on maps like Fracture, but overall he's most likely going to be playing a Jet. Do you think that if they stick over towards the same composition as they did during the main stage 2, Liz, that they're going to suffer the same issue going into LCQ?
No.
Okay.
Hot take. I think they're fine comp wise. I think they just, I hate using this, like, they just need a little bit more time. The one thing I know, I really loved the IGLing. I loved their plays. I loved the way they played. And I think they're great that, and they've even time to like just kind of like even be better there. It's going to be really hard to beat them there. Comp wise, I think they're fine. I think they're not playing anything that's too risky, because I don't think they're a team that really would thrive off of like a risk. And so I think them sticking with what they know and kind of like fine tuning these things and just kind of making sure that they have all their fundamentals down, their plays down, like their shot book goes deep and just they play well. I think they have a very, very, very good shot. I mean, like Sean Garris, DDK, Mike's, like fantastic group of people to have behind you. And you also have a fantastic team of players who, again, like have had time to kind of iron these things out. it's exciting at the same time. No, I think it's like also kind of like talking about all these like high stakes, but also it's really, really exciting to see 100 Thieves as like I like them as like a punishing team. They
Mhm.
will punish the way you play. No matter if it's aggressive, if it's passive, they will read you and they will figure it out. We saw that time and time again
Yeah.
when they were playing. And so that I think that's what's gonna help drive them if they do make it far. That's what's gonna help drive them far.
Yeah, I mean, even 100 Thieves for me though, my big question mark is again, if the rumors are true, and then you actually do have a little bit more chamber being played by this team, meaning there's less jet. That also means that there's gonna be less like will creating space on a Raze or a jet to try to play a pulse plant, and they had the highest stats of being able to play pulse plant for this team. So if they're actually playing a composition that's gonna have less duelists going into this meta, then you're going to have to overwhelm with the best ability usage as possible in order to create that space to plant. If that's not going to happen for 100 Thieves, I think they're going to suffer going into the LCQ playoffs. So we hope there's going to be some of that work being done by Mike's, by DDK, and by Sean Garris, so that we could see this type of like set strats that 100 Thieves could do. But as they have the highest stats going into pulse plants and be able to get the plant down, here's one of the teams that we could talk about that actually had one of the best stats going into defense, and that's EG. And that's also another team that I feel we've been sleeping on a little bit too by not talking about EG whatsoever by anybody in the community that they would have a further one run, sorry, going into the season. So I'm going to toss the question up once again, whoever wants to take this first. Why do you think, in the eyes of the community, EG is not talked about enough when they actually had like the triple initiator comp that actually beat Optic in a sense? That actually made Optic use that very comp.
Let's be real here. There was a good period of time where EG just sucked. Like there's no I
well,
think
stage
back,
one, they're 0-5. I get it.
yeah, not even that. I don't even think they played necessarily like terribly during that. Like I felt like they were kind of an NRG situation, maybe a little bit, not maybe not a lot worse than the NRG situation. I'm not even gonna front on it, but like I'm talking like I just think there's a stigma. Like everyone remembers, like for me at least, EG will have this like name as the team that tried to do a co-op team. Like that's and people kind of just always are gonna think that, and that's unfortunate because you look at this team the way they play, like they are phenomenal. Like Potter has done some crazy shit with this team, and they have grown so much. But like that's just the thing. Like I don't know, maybe people also see it like this way. Like I love Xset, I think they're world, but I always see them as that little brother that I'm always like, ah, I love these guys, but there's always that chance that they end, like throw or lose around. And I like that's a stigma with EG right now. It's like this team is overlooked purely because I think they had that unfortunate phase, a big experiment that didn't work out with the co-ed team. But I think that's why a lot of teams or a lot of people just look over EG. It's just because there's just that weird stigma around them for that's lasted ever since they finally made a deep run. And everyone's thinking, well, EG, like, yeah, they're good, but like they've only been good once. And like you guys remember that time where they were dog shit and they had a co-ed team and it just did not work out at all. That's just the unfortunate truth is there's that unfortunate stigma around them, I think, right now.
Yeah, I mean, you had great players within Jogimo and Busio that really stepped up during the stage 2 in terms of the fragging department. But even looking at the records of EG versus all the other teams, I think they beat Sentinels at some point. But when they had to play against FaZe Clan, when they had to play against the Optic, that's where they kind of fell short. So do we kind of think that EG might have a resurgence going into the playoffs here, Liz, or is it just going to be maybe in that mid-run pack once again for Evil Geniuses on during the LCQ?
Yeah, I trust in Potter. If Potter, like as a coach, would be like, "Hey, Liz, run 50 miles in 2 seconds." I do it. Like, I trust her so much. I think she's incredible at the game. And I've spoken to her as well, and the way she treats her players and the way she treats this game. I think she said in an interview, I don't know if she said it with me or she said it with someone in a post game, like you define the meta. The agency she gives her players, I think, is super important. We talked about that earlier, about how players like create those plays and create those space, and what she gives her players and what she allows them to do to thrive, I think is excellent. I think going back to that stigma thing, like Sentinels haven't been performing well at all, but yet everyone tunes into their matches.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that's what I'm talking about.
Like that sort of, I feel like the Valorant community has a memory of a goldfish from like 2 years ago. like it's like that's the only thing they remember, and it it is what it is. Like it's popular. It's like it's the Valorant community. It's what they remember. And trends are trends. But I think I am super excited to see how Potter and the boys cook things up, and I'm
Mhm.
excited to see what they do. I think they're a bit of a different story. I think they kind of are. They do gel really, really well together.
Yeah.
They do play really, really well together, and I'm excited to see. They're a giant threat. This LCQ, because of just how well they play together, and kind of that story, that resurgence they've had. Time again, like they're always talking about time. Time can be your best friend or your worst enemy, right?
Yeah.
And I
And
think in yes, sorry.
and I just wanted to cut you real quick because you talk about time being your best friend, your enemy here, Liz, and I think that's the story for all of these teams. We have 10 teams going into the LCQ, right? Starting this weekend, and out of the 10 teams, there's 2 that's used that time to actually play into tier 2 tournaments, while the other 10 teams are actually, or sorry, the other 8 teams are focusing on just trying to get some scrims in and just keeping their playbook under wraps. So for these 2 teams being the Guard and also for Cloud9, do we think they're going to be at a disadvantage? Because potentially now we have an idea of what they're going to be playing. And Liz, I see you shaking already, so I want to know your thoughts first.
I think Sully harped on it earlier that this is the best time to kind of shake that it's kind of like your warm up, right? Like you want to see like, what is Saya gonna be good on Neon? Don't want to find that out during the LCQ. Like you don't want to discover that then. Like that'd be the worst time to do it. And because of course other teams have scrims as well. If this is the way that those teams operate by playing in those like quote unquote Mickey Mouse tournaments and those tier 2 tournaments, and absolutely that's your process.
Yeah,
you know, everyone has their own process. Everyone warms up differently, as an example. And so I think I don't see the Guard or Cloud9 at disadvantage, because also if you're a team and you're an analyst and you're a coach, the back of your mind is this could change. Obviously you're going to VOD review and you can do things like that, but if you are going to take everything at face value and say, okay, this is exactly how it's going to be, like this is the playbook, this is how we anti-strat, you think they're not doing the same thing for you, and they're not going to think that you can adapt. Like part of the teams is like that sort of adapting ability. And so I don't think teams that do play in these Mickey Mouse tournaments have a disadvantage by revealing their strat book, because also my gut says they wouldn't be like, all right, boys, here it is, have fun.
Yeah.
Like reveal it for everyone.
And my apologies, I can't count. It's 8 teams, not 10, of course. Thank you, Ian, for letting me know in my ears here. But you know, we talk about the you're not going to be at disadvantage by giving your strats away, but at the same time, if you're Cloud9 and you lost 13 to 2-1 Breeze, there's not really much that you could take out of it from a team that's going to try to study Cloud9, right? But Sully, I want to know your thoughts. Do you think these 2 teams are actually going to be disadvantaged by playing these tier 2 events?
I mean, I think like the easy thing to say is like inherently you're at a disadvantage because you are revealing your strats. But then I'm thinking about like historically, and I'm like, well, XSET played a shit ton of tier 2 events. They won NSG Winter Champs, and now they're going to champs, like normal champs, because they played so many tier 2 events. And then I'm sitting here like the Guard did the same thing. They were on the rise in NSG weeklies, in Knights events, and then they went to Iceland. Granted, they got first rounded, but like these teams that are playing the tier 2 events show tremendous growth when it matters. And it's like we were saying, Liz, it's like warm up now, like be shit now, but be great when you get into LCQ. So I think, yeah, inherently it's easy to say, yeah, everyone's at a disadvantage if you are playing these tier 2 events because you're revealing just a little bit of your hand. But at the end of the day, like I'm thinking historically, like every team that has grinded and played these tier 2 events has shown tremendous growth in the actual VCT. And like I always think of X as that prime example. The tier 2 nannies are now the tier 1 nannies, and they've shown that growth by playing through tier 2 events. So I mean, it's easy to say disadvantage because you're showing your strat book, but I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons when you look at it historically.
I mean, Ghost Gaming proved it during stage 2. The
Sure,
Guard
yes.
proved it during stage 1. So there is going to be some sort of positive by playing these tier 2 Mickey Mouse tournaments there. And all that is going to unfold starting this Thursday in North America for the LCQ. So I'm looking forward to it, man. And I wanted to know, what are you guys doing for the LCQ? If not for the LCQ, anything else planned to give a shout out to as we're ending our show? So Liz, I want to start things off with you. First off, thank you so much for joining the show. But what you got going on here for the next few weeks?
So I'm actually flying to Canada to visit the folks over at the Score Esports.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you can, if you're gonna be in Toronto, we can hang out. But we're going to be co-streaming Evo.
Oh, nice.
For the TV's Score Esports this weekend.
That's
I've
awesome.
never seen Evo before. I've always wanted to, so I'm super excited. I'm the only American on the content team, so I also get to go to Tim Hortons for the first time. Exciting. See your healthcare cards. Crazy.
Oh my god. That's awesome.
But yeah, that's what we're doing. And thank you guys so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, you did an excellent job, and it's been great having you on as well. And Sully, what you going on, homie? What you got going
Oh,
on?
fans, if this show was a day, if this show was tomorrow, I could say. Can't say. You have to wait until tomorrow.
Okay. So we'll see. Make sure you guys follow Sully, actually at SullyCast there, so that we can follow the announcement going out there too. Liz, you're just Liz from the Score Esports, but where can we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at EJMarchini. So it's E, then J, then MARCHINI, because my last name is tricky.
And with that, we wish the best also for all the teams for LCQ in North America. Somebody in the chat earlier, let me just scroll up and see. It's Zero Pro 24. Thank you, or TYTY was asking, is this a live show or is it recorded? We're actually live here, and we're live every Tuesday for Valoranting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv on this very channel at DN Peak. And for those of you that are actually listening to this on VOD on youtube.com/Valoranting, or also on audio only in our audio platforms such as Spotify, Apple, welcome. Come back next time. Come chat with us live, and we'll see you also on next Tuesday. So with that, on behalf of Sully, Liz, and myself, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.